My name is Mark, and this happened when I was 29 years old. At the time, I was unemployed, low on savings, and desperate enough to take just about any job someone offered. That job came in the form of a night shift security position at an abandoned shopping mall on the outskirts of town. Cross Ridge Mall had shut down years ago, long before I ever moved here. Most of the stores had cleared out, the power was only partly operational, and the place was scheduled for renovation whenever the city finally figured out what to do with it. Until then, the property owners didn't want squatters, vandals, or kids sneaking into party inside the empty halls, so they hired me through a small private security firm. The pay was above average and the hours were easy, 12-hour shifts, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., mostly just patrols, camera monitoring, and filing basic reports. What they didn't tell me, what nobody bothered to warn me, was this: I was not alone in that mall, not even close. My first night was uneventful. I arrived, got a quick rundown from the day shift guard, and was handed a ring of keys, a flashlight, a walkie-talkie, and a battered binder with outdated emergency procedures. The security office was on the second floor near the old food court, a cramped room with flickering fluorescent lights and dusty monitors that half worked on a good day. But for a desperate man, it was fine. I started by walking a full lap to familiarize myself with the layout. The mall was huge, bigger than necessary for a town that size. Wide tiled walkways, glass storefronts plastered with faded leasing signs, escalators that had long since stopped running, and the occasional dripping pipe that echoed through the halls like distant footsteps. I remember thinking the place looked like someone had hit a giant pause button during business hours and then just walked away. I finished the patrol and returned to the office. I ate a sandwich, filled out a short log entry, and turned on the security monitors. That was when I noticed the first strange thing. Camera 14, facing the service corridor near the old Sears, had static interference. The image glitched every few seconds. Not unusual for old equipment, but then I saw movement. A shadow. Just a single dark shape, long and human-shaped, gliding across the floor before vanishing out of frame. I stared at the monitor, waiting for the shadow to return, but the corridor stayed empty. I told myself it was probably a camera glitch. That explanation worked, for the moment. Around 1 a.m., I grabbed my flashlight and headed out for another patrol. The mall was cold at night. Not freezing, but just cold enough to make your skin prickle when the air shifted around you. I walked the east wing first, passing the closed storefronts and cracked tile flooring. Everything was quiet until I reached the escalator. The metal steps rattled, shaking softly like something was moving beneath them. I waited, holding my breath, but the sound stopped as suddenly as it had started. Maybe a rat or raccoon, I thought, or the metal expanding. But then I heard something else. A voice. Soft. Barely a whisper. Hello? I spun around, shining my flashlight into the dark hallway. Nobody there. The air was still. My throat tightened as the voice came again. Is anyone there? The voice was young, female, fragile even, but it echoed in the wrong way, like it came from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. I swallowed, tried to steady my voice, and called back. I'm security. If someone's here, identify yourself. No answer. Suddenly, something clattered behind me. I turned and saw a plastic sign lying on the floor, a wet floor sign, even though I was certain it hadn't been there a second earlier, like someone had just placed it. My pulse quickened. I finished my patrol faster than usual and hurried back to the security office. The monitor for camera 14 flickered again. This time, the shadow was standing still, a tall black figure at the far end of the hallway, as if facing the camera directly. My hands trembled. Before I could react, the screen cut to black. The second night was worse. This time, the building manager met me before my shift. He wore a suit that didn't quite fit and smelled faintly of sweat and cheap aftershave. He took me aside and said, "If you hear anything unusual at night, just make sure it's not trespassers. Kids sometimes sneak in through the service entrance." His tone was forced, like he'd rehearsed that line. When I asked if previous guards experienced strange things, he went pale and gave a short answer. They didn't last long. Then he left. Not exactly comforting. Shortly after midnight, I heard footsteps on the floor above me, heavy, slow steps, like work boots. I checked the monitors. Nothing. Every hallway empty. I grabbed my flashlight and started up the stairwell. As soon as I stepped onto the second floor, the temperature dropped sharply. The air became colder, heavier, like the environment itself was pushing against me. That was when I saw the first real sign that something was not normal. At the far end of the hallway stood a woman. Her back was facing me. Long, dark hair, hospital gown, bare feet on the grimy tile, like she had walked straight out of a medical ward. She wasn't moving. She wasn't swaying. Just standing completely still, looking into the empty storefront. I froze, and then I called out, "Ma'am, you're not supposed to be in here. Do you need assistance?" She didn't turn. I took a few hesitant steps toward her. That was when she slowly began to raise her arm. Not toward me, but toward the glass window of the deserted shop in front of her, like she was pointing at something inside. I lifted my flashlight beam to see what she was indicating, and my blood ran cold. There was a reflection in the glass, not of her, not of me, but of a tall, dark shadow standing directly behind her. Something impossibly thin, stretching far taller than any human should be. Its arms were long and bent, its head tilted as if broken at the neck. I snapped the light back toward the woman. She was gone, just vanished. But the shadow in the reflection, still there. I ran. Back in the security room, I locked the door and tried to steady my breathing. My hands shook as I stared at the monitors. One by one, the camera feeds flickered, each showing brief glimpses of movement, shadows darting across the floors, reflections moving where no one stood, and once, a pale face leaning out from behind a support beam before pulling back. I unplugged the monitors. I'd rather be blind than watch that. And yet, the worst moment hadn't even come yet. Around 3:08 a.m., the radio on the desk crackled to life. Not the walkie-talkie. The mall's emergency radio. The one I'd been told never to touch unless there was a fire or major incident. A deep male voice spoke through the static, calm but urgent. "Security, respond." My mouth went dry. I reached for the handset. "This is Mark. Go ahead." A long silence. Then the voice again, this time strained. "Do not go into hallway 4. Keep away from camera 14. The transmission cut. I froze. Camera 14 was the same hallway where I'd seen the shadow the night before. Suddenly, the radio crackled again. But this time, a different voice came through. Faint, frightened, female. "I can't get out. Please, help me." I dropped the radio. It was the same voice I'd heard on the first night, the same desperate tone, the same sense of someone trapped. Then, from somewhere deep in the mall, I heard something slam. Hard. Like a door being kicked, followed by a scream that echoed through the empty corridors. I grabbed my flashlight, against every instinct telling me not to, and forced myself back into the hallway. Sometimes curiosity kills more than just cats. The mall felt wrong the moment I stepped outside the office, like the air itself was thicker. The emergency lights flickered dimly, shadows stretching across the floor like claw marks. I made my way toward hallway 4. When I turned the corner, I stopped dead. The exit door, A locked emergency door was repeatedly denting inward. Something on the other side was slamming into it. The metal bulged with each impact. Then the slamming stopped. For a few moments there was silence. Then something scraped against the door from the other side, slow and metallic, like nails dragging across steel. I backed away slowly. A soft whisper slid through the air behind me. "Mark." I spun around. Nothing. Not a person. Not a sound. Just the abandoned hallway. And then finally the door began to open. Not quickly. Slowly. Gently. As if something on the other side was savoring every inch it revealed. I ran. I didn't stop until I reached the security office. I slammed the door shut, locked it, and dragged the desk in front of it. The lights flickered again. The whole building seemed to buzz like a swarm of wasps. One of the monitors, even though it was unplugged, flickered to life on its own. Camera 14. The hallway was empty at first. Then, slowly, a single black figure stepped into view. Not walking. Gliding. Its long limbs scraped the floor. Its head hung sideways like broken bone. It moved closer to the camera. Closer. Closer. Until its face filled the entire screen, a void of darkness with two static white eyes staring directly into me. And then, the monitor went black. The lights cut out. Total darkness. In that darkness, right outside the office door, I heard slow footsteps. Then the whisper. Inches from the other side of the door. "You shouldn't be here." Something scratched the wood. Long, slow, deliberate clawing. I curled into the corner of the room, flashlight shaking in my hand, whispering, "This isn't real. This isn't real," even though I knew it was. The scratching stopped. The footsteps faded, and the lights returned. Just like that. The mall fell completely silent again. When the sun finally began to rise, I gathered my things, left my badge on the desk, and walked straight out the front doors without looking back. I never returned. I didn't pick up my paycheck. I didn't answer when the company called. Some places are abandoned for a reason. Some buildings remember what happened inside them, and some shadows don't fade just because the lights turn off. Even now, months later, I sometimes wake up in the middle of the night convinced I hear footsteps in the hallway outside my door. Slow, dragging footsteps, heading toward me. And every time I do, one thought crosses my mind. The same question that haunts me. What would you do in this dilemma? If you want more stories just like this, make sure to subscribe to Horror Dilemma and step deeper into the darkness. New nightmares every day.